Hey, how you doing? I'm Katie Cowan and I'm your host for the Creative Boom podcast. For episode 65, my guest is Timothy Goodman, a designer, illustrator, muralist and author based in New York City. But his beloved grandma simply calls him an artist. We've seen Timothy's art and words across everything from basketball courts and buildings to magazine covers and galleries all over the world. And his clients today include Google, Samsung and Airbnb. He's won many awards, co-created lots of interesting side projects like the famous 40 Days of Dating with Jessica Walsh, 12 Kinds of Kindness, People of Craft and Friends with Secrets. He's also the author of Sharpie Art Workshop, and he's got a third book in the making, of which he sort of announces in this podcast. He's done a collection with Uniqlo, and he's just enjoyed his first solo exhibition in New York. And if that wasn't enough, he also teaches at the School of Visual Arts. I'd got some kind of impression of what Timothy might be like through various interviews and projects over the years, but I didn't expect such an open and honest chat about his life and work, or that we'd cover the meaning of life. Timothy also talks candidly about the lessons he's learned of having to pay and work his way through education, and why it's so important to have side projects, ask for help, and speak up and speak out. As we're on the verge of welcoming 2022 and hoping it brings much positivity, I thought this was a timely conversation with someone that doesn't hold anything back. But before we dive in, a word about our sponsor. Creative Boom Season 3 is made possible by Capture One, a Denmark-based company that constantly innovates to create world-class tools for editing, organising and working with photos. Use code CREATIVEBOOM for 10% off or sign up for a 30-day free trial. Now for my chat with Timothy. Oh, thank you for bearing with me. A few technical problems there, but it just shows...
No problem.
It reveals a lot of your kind of, what we were talking about, how kind New York is. It reveals that you're a kind, patient person. I get that impression from you anyway on Instagram and all the interviews. And
I have my moments. I don't know if everyone in my life would consider me patient. It's interesting because I was just telling someone so much of the work I do is really rooted in the fact that I'm impatient. That's how I believe, as artists, we really should tap into our postures and behaviors as people, and that will drive the work you create. And in a lot of ways, so much of the work I do is just it's so immediate. I want to get it out. I want people to read the message immediately. I want them to feel something. I don't want to labor over anything. And and so much of it is just rooted in my own tendencies and of impatience. You know what I mean? And I want to get it done, and I want to get home, and I want to take a shower, and I want to watch the Knicks basketball game, or I want to go see a friend or my girlfriend or whatever. I don't it's interesting. So I can be very impatient.
How do you choose what to wear in the morning?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're kind of not if you sort of want to change everything all the time, do you sort of is your wardrobe constantly changing, or is that something that's quite sort of solid about you? You know where you are with your clothes?
No, my wardrobe is I have one day I'm wearing a Wolves vintage shirt and then and baggy pants, and then the next day I'm wearing like slacks with a really nice shirt but tucked in with dress shoes. I love changing. I love the idea that that I could be anybody I want on any given day, in a sense.
Yeah, I enjoy that, but I'm very boring. I kind of feel overwhelmed by choice, so I'll just usually resort to black jeans and a black t-shirt. Maybe I can be inspired by you a little bit there.
Yeah, no, I'm really inspired by the expression of fashion and clothes and on any given day. It took me a while to really tap into that, but that any given day I can kind of really outwardly express how I'm feeling inside. And I love that. So
No, it's quite interesting because I think a lot of people lose that as they get older. And I think that's one of the things I've noticed about people who work in the creative community. They still tap into that kind of glorious phase that we had when we were teenagers. And we realized, I remember going to school as a bit of a geek one day. And then the other day, I just came in dressed like, an extra for a Nirvana video.
Yeah,
and that was it. Everyone was like, oh my God, Katie's become a goth.
An extra for a Nirvana video. That's amazing. It's interesting that the 90s, like so much fashion from the 90s has come back. So
I know. I went to a music festival over the summer and I was just looking around. I was feeling a bit old actually, which is very unusual for me because I'm very kind of, I hate people who say, oh my God, I'm so old. But I was looking around going, oh my God, she's dressed like I was when I was 15.
Yeah,
they're all wearing
exactly.
bucket hats and, Doc Martens, and it's crazy.
Isn't that interesting though? It's like, it's something I'm thinking about as I'm getting older and as I continue in this industry. Obviously, it's like how, I want to create work that somehow lasts, that touches people and that, obviously when I need to create what's in my heart, but it's also like I want to create work that is timeless in some sense, and that doesn't just only work off of trends, that really brings joy to people in their lives and impacts them. And so that's, I don't know, it's interesting how I think about, and I want to tell stories that resonate with people that could be told in any, decade. And so, how to cut through it all and be sincere as a creative is really important to me. And it's hard. It's very difficult.
It's really difficult. And I suppose when you're a person that's creative and you've got all these ideas, there comes a frustration sometimes that you can't get them into real life and out there as fast as you can.
For sure. And more creatives need to acknowledge the privileges they have, that, how much easier it is for them to break down that threshold of idea in your head and being able to execute it, and so much of that is about, economic security. It's about race. It's about gender. It's about, just their education and the resources they have available to them. It's one thing to tell everybody to take a year off, and don't work or something, but why are you able to do that? And if you're talking about that and you're, telling people to quit their job, well, how are you able to do that? And are you not acknowledging the trials and tribulations that everyone has in their life and that people need to pay their bills? People have families to support and people have loans and, and so it's just, that's just something that kind of drives me a little wild.
Yeah. Did you always know that you had like that safety net that you could always go back and have people that care about you and help put a roof over your head in case like maybe
No,
leaving?
I never had a safety net. No,
did you not?
No, I had to pay for college myself. So no, I never had a safety net. I do now, because I've been able to make money in this industry, and so I am able to take time to do personal projects and things like that, and balance, and to find that balance of like commercial work and personal projects. But I didn't come from money, so I had to pay for my education, and when I moved, I grew up in Ohio and I moved to New York to go to college when I was 23. I was older because I went to community college and I worked full time in Cleveland painting homes early in my as a teenager in my early 20s. And basically I read this I was going to community college and I wanted to go to an art school and move to New York, but I didn't know how I was going to pay for a $40,000 education. So I read this entire book called How to Go to College for Almost Free. And it sounds corny, but that book taught me how to find scholarships and how to apply and how to write about myself and tell my story. And I ended up finding and applying to 100 scholarships over the course of a year and a half, and I won 10 of them. And I was able to take out loans and get some also like scholarships at SVA where I went here in New York, and to figure out how to pay for my education. So when I moved here to go to college and I was a little older, it was like very much like a job. I was like, I have to make it, or I'm moving back to Cleveland, Ohio to paint homes. And I didn't want to do that. So, but of course I have security as a white cis straight man in this world. And I think that's important to acknowledge too, when we're talking about quote unquote success, so.
Even your name is kind of something that gets you into places,
Yeah, of course. Timothy Goodman. I mean,
well, I don't mean in that sense. I mean, maybe today, but back then, I mean, just having a sort of normal, well, what's normal? Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say? Having a name that's kind of in that privilege, that Timothy, myself, Katie, we had that kind of privilege to get us into the jobs and
I have a friend who's trying to rent a place right now. She's a Black woman, and she has a name that is not quote unquote standard.
Yes, that's a better way to put it.
And she's having a very difficult time even getting meetings and stuff because racism is well and alive.
Well and truly still there. Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, you've been quite sort of vocal about this over the years, and kind of became quite famous for calling the industry out, even years ago, even before the events of last summer and everything that kicked off then or came to a head. I mean, I really love that you were calling, asking in a tweet in 2016, white designer guys, make sure any conference that you're speaking at is balanced. I mean,
before you accept,
it's kind of a really simple but very powerful thing that kind of forces change.
Yeah, I mean, I you would want and hope so. I still see so much of it. I mean, there's just so many conferences. It's quite astounding how many conferences there are in this industry all over the world, but that's a whole other conversation. But it's important. I wish more and more, white men who are being asked, this knee-jerk reaction that we have in this industry as curators, people like yourself who run podcasts, people who run conferences, so much of it is, I understand that there's a financial part of this, like, well, you need to get big names in because that, people are then going to pay for tickets and stuff like that. And that's fine. Get your couple big names and stuff like that. But you still need to, it's really needs to work from the inside out. And we need to start calling, I don't mean calling out in this, like, it doesn't have to be in this, like, it's not a negative thing.
No, of course not.
It needs to be a conversation about, someone like me who, has a somewhat, an audience or any sort of influence who's being asked to be on these things. We need to start having these conversations like, what? Okay, well, are you, last year I saw this conference and there's 26 white men and 3 women and, no one who's Black and 2 Asian people. Like, why is that? Like, are you going to promise to make a more inclusive cast of speakers? Not because you should, but because it's actually like really important and educational to an audience to be hearing viewpoints from people from all over who have all kinds of different backgrounds and textures. And why is that not something that, I'm like just completely bored at this point. I don't even, and I don't even want to be a part of it. I don't even want to tell my story of that, like at this point, like, because it's just like, okay, it's just another white guy out there. It's like talking about, all the things that he's been able to do. It's just boring at this point. So
yeah, it's like have lots of different voices sat around the table. And, that kind of makes the creativity that comes out, reflective of our world.
And if you're uncomfortable with that as someone with influence who's running these kind of things or curating these things, then you really need to find out why and check yourself and I actually ask yourself if you're if you should even be in this position, because if you don't feel comfortable looking outside the box and finding people who don't look like you, who don't have the same background as you, that as a person of influence. And you need to really ask yourself why, so yeah, it's important to continue to talk about, in all ways,
So you grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes.
What sticks out from that time?
People in Ohio are, people wear their heart on their sleeve in the Midwest, and like people, I still have that, even though I really feel like a New Yorker through and through. I've been here for 17 years. I don't think, even if I were to live somewhere else, I just don't think like it's still going to always be my home base. Like I feel like I belonged here before I ever even touched ground here, sometimes you're born in the wrong cities, you know, sometimes you're born to the wrong parents. Sometimes you're born, like it's just, it's what it is. So I'm a New Yorker, but Cleveland really taught me, I just have a deep admiration for, the spirit of cities in the Midwest and Cleveland and Detroit and Chicago. And, I've learned that over the years. Like, I really have I don't know, it's the people, it's just the people. People are kind and people are sincere. And, I love
There's a
that.
different pace.
It's definitely a different pace. And people say pop instead of soda. And, and people say, a sucker instead of a lollipop.
Oh, interesting. Little things like that make you feel, but not necessarily. You don't feel at home when you hear those because you say your heart's in New York now. Do you never get that twang of home? Like you never get that, that feeling
of course I have. Yeah, of course, and I'm a sentimental person. And so I love to be home and I love to, get nostalgic and like go drive by my old middle school and, and the place I grew up in. But it's really more for the people, like my family and certain friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, I remember how, like, to me, that's where it started, I'm also like a person who thinks about, and this is not always healthy, I'm discussing it in therapy, but I think about the people who told me I would never make it too, there. And I thrive off of that, and I'll think about like certain people that I knew, who are very big on like the whole don't forget where you came from kind of a thing. And, oh, you think you're this cool, or, oh, you've traveled the world doing and like, don't forget where you came from. And it's like, bro, I didn't forget where I came from. Maybe you haven't evolved, like, have you ever thought about that? Like,
oh, wow. Profound.
Why can't I be unapologetically me now? You know what I mean? Like maybe I have changed and that's not bad. Maybe my interests and opinions and perspectives have evolved and grown. And you're the same, like,
yeah.
And I don't know. It's interesting, I don't subscribe to that whole don't forget where you came from.
We're taking a little break to thank our sponsor for Season 3 of the Creative Boom podcast. Capture One is an award-winning photo editing software that delivers a seamless editing experience, fast workflows, and total creative control. Its unmatched colour processing for all major camera brands and industry-leading tethered support makes it the ultimate tool for creatives worldwide. Get a 10% discount on Capture One with the code CreativeBoom and start taking your photography to the next level. You can even try out the software for free with a 30-day trial to see just how it can elevate your editing. Now, back to Timothy. Therapy, you mentioned that. That is powerful. It's not really something that's big here. It's gotten more accepted. But I think it's always been considered by Brits as kind of an American thing,
Of course, a lot of Europeans, when I spent time in Paris a couple of years ago, people were like, "What?" And like they couldn't even believe I was admitting it out loud, like proudly that I'm in therapy,
Yeah.
And I thought that was so fascinating. But wait, thinking about therapy in the context of our conversation, what we're talking about with our hometowns and stuff, like for many years, I really struggled with like what you could maybe classify as survivor's guilt, and like feeling this feeling of like, oh, like the fact that and I was talking about it before, that now I feel a strong sense of economic security in my life. Like I'm not living right now paycheck to paycheck, and I'm not, and I've done well for myself with my work. And more people need to talk about that, because you don't know how to like I didn't grow up that way. I grew up, we didn't have money growing up. I saw a lot of economic insecurity with my mom and my stepdad, and I saw a lot of things that were difficult to see, that gave me anxiety around money, from a very early age. And the fact that now I don't have that as an adult, and I also realized so much of what I was doing, moving to New York and really trying to quote unquote make it when I was in college and in my first couple jobs when I worked in branding, was driven by the insecurity of like, I don't want to ever have to deal with that as an adult. I don't want my kids to see that. You know what I mean? But then you
Yeah.
connect the dots years later, and thanks to therapy and stuff, like then you realize, oh, that's why I was doing X, Y, and Z, and that wasn't necessarily healthy. But I did have a survivor's guilt, like feeling like I don't deserve what I have now. You know what I mean? Because of what I saw as a kid, or because my family doesn't have what I have now, which is obviously, not a correct way of thinking, but it's something that I have struggled with. But I don't think I struggle with it much anymore.
It's hard though, because like
Yeah.
when you do start talking about these things, you call them therapists, we call them counselors,
Yeah.
the amount of things that just go, whoa, in your brain, you're like, oh, that's why I'm doing that. That's why I've always thought that. And even just them sort of saying some like very simple truth to you, some stranger saying, so like I had a bit of therapy, and the counselor, after I told her my story of what happened to me when I was a kid, she said, oh my God, Katie, you had a really traumatic childhood. And I just burst out crying, because
Yeah.
the relief and the weight
Yeah,
off my
exactly.
shoulders just made me feel, oh, okay, I'm allowed to accept that. And
Yeah.
it's only when you've kind of dealt with these things that you can then start like building the jigsaw and
Yeah, for
realizing,
sure. For me, putting labels on things really helps, like
okay.
tremendously. Like when my therapist told me years ago that I have something called abandonment depression, it made so much sense to me then. Considering that like I grew up without my father and he left and all these kind of things, and why I react to certain things or why I latch on to certain things, and I have dependency on certain things, like, but putting it that way, or that it's like it's a form of what is the
Cognitive behavioral therapy, is it?
yeah, for sure.
So you're kind of just
But
swapping.
it's an attachment disorder in some way, which is another kind of label, and like all that kind of stuff really started to like help me by putting labels on these things, which is so important for me. So being able to just be like, wow. But what you said, like even for me, and we don't have to go too deep, but like when I was able to, when I first time I ever admitted, which wasn't that long ago, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, like saying like, oh, I was abused as a child. And like, wow, I've never said that out loud. I've never even thought about it that way, but it's true. And like, I
Yeah.
cried and like, I went through that, and like, but it's interesting as creative people, like what drives us to like, for me as an independent artist, like so much who makes work for myself in a sense, for an audience, but it's through me, not attached to necessarily a brand or some commercial aspect. You know, all these things in my past and stuff filters through me in these sense, and and it's just interesting to kind of wrestle with that as a creative person.
I think we're always wrestling with something. And I'm sorry to hear that you went through that when you were a kid. And I just think that, if somebody's listening to this and something terrible's happened to them, they should go and speak to someone about it, because it just really helps to not carry that kind of secret, I suppose, that shame, that guilt, and thinking you did something wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, gosh, we're supposed to be talking about creativity. No, it's one of those things, isn't it? I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I'd gone and spoken to someone sooner. How do you mind me asking how old you are now, Timothy?
I'm 41 actually.
And how were you?
I graduated college when I was 28 because I went back to school. Yeah, so I'm on a completely different trajectory than most people.
How were you turning 40? Were you okay, or did you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I lost my confidence a little bit. I went through a phase of that, but I think that
How
was
old are you?
I'm 43.
Ah.
Yeah, so I think it was more to do with the fact that my dad got really ill, and I think it just knocked me for six and made me realize, oh no, my world isn't as safe as I thought it was, Yeah,
and you're not immortal, and like it's wild because my grandma, who is a huge creative inspiration to me my whole life, she's an artist, and she painted and did pottery and just all kinds of wild, and cooked and all kinds of wild, like just, she's almost a graphic designer in her own sense in a lot of ways too. But she's been, she's struggling with dementia.
Oh, no.
And it's getting rapidly worse. And especially through the pandemic, it's kind of sped up in a lot of ways. And it's heartbreaking, to see it and to experience it. And it's really kind of making me face a lot of, just the fact that, I'm getting older and it just puts new perspective and meaning onto everything,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and family is just so important. And if she is such an influence and love, that's, I hope she's okay.
Yeah, me too. I don't want to give up on her. It's hard because, sometimes it's like, dementia is a difficult thing because it's like one minute they're great. And then the next time you call, I called my grandmother last weekend and she yelled at me and hung up on me.
Oh,
and I was just like, and I was angry, and there was a part of me. It's like, I don't ever want to talk to her again because this is not the person I know. But, it's also important to not give up on her, so but
we still got to be there for them.
Yeah.
Well, let's cheer this conversation up a bit. It is lovely to hear more about your family and your childhood. I mean, we both grew up in a time which felt, in my mind, quite optimistic because we were sort of blessed with these amazing movies of the 80s and some of the 90s. Just magical. Like that's what we had. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the internet. We just had this very kind of traditional medium that was going to the cinema or going to the movies. I don't know how you would have said in America, but things like, I don't know, The Goonies and Ferris Bueller, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I just wanted to go to New York and dance to the Beatles.
Ferris Bueller was my favorite movie growing up. Movie was everything I wanted to be. Like, I just wanted to just skip school and do things on my own terms, and that's what Ferris did. Yeah, it was kind of the definition of white privilege. But I didn't realize that as a kid. But yeah, Ferris Bueller was like my number one movie. I used to watch that constantly.
He was clever, wasn't he, with all his kind of like fancy pants hi-fi system and his keyboards.
Yeah.
His classic sort of teen bedroom.
But this idea that you don't have to play by the rules was something that always stuck with me and still does stick with me, And it's like, again, there's a lot of privilege built into that, but it's like it's important to remember that there are other avenues, and that and the avenue doesn't mean. It can be small little gestures, and there's, so many times I meet so many young people, students and, young designers fresh out of school who are worried, about their career path. They're worried about falling into, a cycle of doing work for an agency or something that they're not proud of, or work that is not stimulating enough, or work that, isn't maybe even ethical in some sense, like maybe, or goes against, like working for a fast food brand or something like that, which I think is like, I don't have any gripes with. I think it's one thing to work for, I don't know. I think there's a lot of, but I think just, again, it's like, who are you telling people not to work for when people have to survive off of that because
It's
they don't have
complicated, isn't
enough
it?
money? You know what I mean? So like, but that's another conversation. But I meet a lot of people, and it's like, don't forget that you can still, like, obviously nothing is possible without making time for it. And I don't know, everybody has their own sort of like, I don't know the if you have a family, or if you're paying, people have to pay for all kinds of things. Or obviously the cost of living is tremendous, especially in a place like New York.
Gosh,
But even like cooking or growing that garden, or, having a painting class with your friends once a week, or, I started learning French a couple years ago. Like, there are ways that still stimulate that creative force inside of us, that doesn't have to be about quitting your job and starting some business that you always wanted to. That it's just, there are a lot of ways.
Totally. I mean, you can sell your soul to PR and go into the PR business for a decade, and then to keep yourself sane, run a little platform to support underrepresented creatives and call it Creative Boom. And then, 12 years after starting it, you find yourself doing it as a main venture, which is, glorious. I mean, I feel so lucky every day. But you are now teaching at the same school where you went yourself, but you started off working for Brian Collins, didn't you?
Yes.
And
well, yeah, I actually started my first year. I was a book jacket designer at Simon and Schuster in New York City.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
It was a lot of fun, because all my design heroes when I was in school, like they all kind of, it was like the novelty, like they all kind of did book jackets, and they did editorial illustrations and all these things. So I thought, I really wanted to do that. And
magical.
I wanted to go work for this guy, John Fulbrook, who is a creative director at Simon & Schuster. And, that was like, to me, that was like the dream job. So then and then a year out, I worked for Brian, and my whole kind of existence exploded as I knew it, working for Brian Collins back then.
Yeah. Was he a good mentor?
He was. Brian was incredible to my kind of development as a designer and as a human, in a lot of ways, and and finding my path and my voice. I remember he sat me down. He saw I was really interested in, I'd started a blog, and this is like, I think 2009. I worked for him for about 2.5 years. It was like 2008, 2009, part of 2010. And, I was really starting to I was writing about my thoughts on design and all these things, and with my blog, and I was taking pictures, and I started my Twitter account, and he saw that I was doing all this freelance on the side, which he was totally cool with,
That's
God
great.
bless him. He really supported my my wanting to try my hands at a lot of things, and not feeling, a lot of people who are run companies and creative directors and bosses, they get really threatened. They don't want you doing side work at all, because it's going to take away from your energy towards the company, which I think is complete bullshit. It's only going to bring more energy back to, to it. You need to let individuals diversify their skills and what they want to do. But he was incredible about that. And he saw that I was doing all these things, and he sat me down and he said, you can do this. You can be a voice if you really want to. Don't forget that. And just hearing someone like him, someone who I looked up to and was my boss and mentor, just tell me that with confidence was all I needed at that time, So I give him he was, really paramount to my development back then.
Yeah. And then you kind of decided to go. I mean, you got offered an amazing job, really, didn't you? I mean, Apple.
Yes.
So you couldn't
Yeah,
really say no. You couldn't.
I couldn't. I was young, I was I was still only like 3 years out of school. The fact that I was offered this job to go out and move to San Francisco and work for Apple, and I could tell my mom could finally tell her friends what I did for a living, and I could get my teeth fixed, all the things, and
Oh,
but I didn't feel great about it. It was I just did my first mural. I didn't love San Francisco. I was really struggling with the corporate world and how much everything had to, and rightfully so, had to be extremely confidential, and in a place like that. And for me, who is a bit of a loudmouth and a very colorful character, and
no,
who
I'd
likes
never
to
have thought it.
and who likes to share and express myself in all ways, I found myself I just was strapped. It was very difficult. It was very important for me to do it. I don't regret it because it pushed me so far left to build up the confidence to then go work for myself. So I needed that, and I needed to leave New York for a year. All of it was incredible for my path. So there's not one regret at
Of
all,
course not. No.
because I became to be honest, I became so unhappy that it forced me to then go home every night and all my weekends and do all my side work and just hustle like I had never hustled that before. Um, and with the idea that maybe I could make enough money on the side to pay my rent, which would give me the confidence to quit and move
Yeah.
back to New York. And after about 15 months, that's what I did. I moved back to New York. I quit and moved back. But it was a tremendous experience, and there's incredible people who work there, and just the most talented designers ever who you'll never know about because they're not interested in being
Fame.
they're not interested in shouting their opinion on Twitter. They're not interested in entering on some awards show. They have their head down and they're just working, and they're incredible people with just skills I've never seen before, quite frankly. So
No experience is wasted, is it? You just, the chance that you get to build a network, make friends, learn
yeah,
something about yourself, learn something about other people. That's what I would always say to younger people or people who are just sort of entering this industry. I would just say, don't get disheartened if you're in a job that might seem like it's not, the most exciting thing in the world, because you can learn something from it.
oh yeah, I mean, so much of the time you learn what you don't want, and that's more important sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, like I always tell young individuals to really think about, like, not necessarily in, like, early in your career, your first job or two, like, it's not always about where you want to work, it's who you want to work for, and who is going to cultivate a real relationship with you and be a mentor, and who's someone who's going to support and encourage your development as a designer, and all of that, and um, not I don't know, you just see too many heartbreaking stories where, and someone who's going to just really have a trajectory for your career path in a sense, and that's so important early on, and give you the confidence you need as a younger designer. And I just hope that more and more, people in positions of power are doing that with younger individuals. So
Yeah, because you yourself have been quite deliberate in that, haven't you? You've just kind of sought out people you admire and then made it your mission to work for them.
yeah, quite frankly, yeah, very much. I've never been bashful about that. I've never been shy about that. And it's also important for me to, obviously I am in a different position because I kind of have one foot out of traditional graphic design at this point, maybe even 2 feet out. I don't know, but I still hire people. I have younger people, assistants who help me with various projects on a part-time basis, and it's very important for me to, to obviously pay them right, treat them right, consider their well-being, but let them know that anything you need, I'm here for you. What do you need? You need a recommendation. You need a letter. You want a shout out on Instagram. You want whatever it is. Like, how can I help you get a job? How can I, really support and encourage your growth is paramount. And to be a mentor for anybody who's around for that. So.
Yeah, it's a shame they don't realize that that's all they need to do, just apply themselves that little bit extra and like reach out and ask for things. So you're definitely a thinker, and I can definitely see that you like to explore yourself through your creativity. I guess you look like you're very kind of keen to figure out who Timothy Goodman is. And, it's kind of a work in progress, like with any of us. Would you say that's true? Would you say that you're kind of just through your art and design trying to figure out what happens next?
Yeah, I'm, I write a lot of stories. I post them on Instagram. I just had my first solo exhibition here in New York City that was up for a month. It's closed now. And I had, lots of my work consists of writings and narratives and things like that, and poems that I write. And yes, so much of it is for me about the human condition and how to capture moments, that whether it's about heartbreak, whether it's about love, whether it's about politics, whether it's about, depression and mental health, therapy, manhood, vulnerability as a man, talking about privilege, all these kind of things. It's really, it's about capturing the human condition and telling stories as I see them wherever I am in my life. And that's all I can kind of do. I don't know what else to work with. I have, it's kind of, I've always seen it that way. And I'm blessed now to be able to kind of like capture some of these as time capsules. I'm very excited. I'm going to be, I just got a book deal to do a graphic memoir about a certain time in my life.
Amazing.
That will not be out for a while. It's just kind of all happening right now. I'm very excited, but again, it's like, it's like 40 Days of Dating that we did 8 years ago and certain things like that.
I can't believe that's 8 years ago.
I know, it's wild. It's wild. It's this moment, because I write, it's like going to be poems and graphs and charts, and it's about this time of my life, but it's about love, it's about dating, it's about showing up for yourself, it's about vulnerability, it's about manhood, and it is this like time capsule, and I think that, and I love that, it's like any album that you love, it's about, or any artist, they are these slices of life, and that's all I know how to work with in some sense.
Dare I ask, do you ever get embarrassed by your former work? Are you like, oh gosh, cringe? Or are you proud of everything you've done?
No, I mean, there's certainly things, I look back at a project like 40 Days of Dating, and that was a huge moment for me, because I did have to come to grips with my toxic masculinity in a lot of ways, and I call myself a recovering misogynist, and I think that project also put to the it really brought to the forefront that, oh, I'm not who I think I am, and I have a lot of work to do with how some of my attitudes and postures about relationships, about women, about my experience as a man and my privileges and all these kind of things. And so I look at things, and I look at things I've written back then, 7, 8 years ago, and I'm not. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm happy for it, because it's actually really allowed me to grow. And I think that's all you can ask for anybody, especially any artist. But I'm not necessarily like proud of it either, and there are things that I cringe about. So, but
well, you know what
I'm
they
okay
say.
with that,
Yeah, well, it's great. I mean, but you know what they say, if you're not looking back and cringing a little
Yeah.
bit, it doesn't, you haven't improved. So it's good to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
So would you say you're in a good place now?
Yeah, for sure. I think the pandemic has been difficult for a lot of people, obviously, and you know, but it's also been this incredible thing, this incredible experience that's put so much stuff in perspective, and pushed so
Yeah.
much stuff to the side and brought so much of, and so I am thankful for that in a sense. I still struggle with, all kinds of things that I'm constantly talking about, whether it be mental health or anxiety or depression at times and all these things. But, I am in a good place. I'm madly in love.
Oh,
My girlfriend has moved in the last 2 months, and,
wow.
like she is everything to me. What's up, Tina? I love you.
Oh, you're smiling your head off.
I
Absolutely love
know.
it.
And, and so, there's that. And,
It's
yeah,
pretty
life,
good.
and I feel, I just had my first solo exhibition in the last couple months.
And
And
then
I
your
just told you,
is it your second book coming out or is it your third?
well, it'd actually be my third.
Yes,
There's the 40 Days of Dating book. There's a Sharpie art workshop,
of course.
which is a workshop book that came out years ago. But this is a book that I've never done before. I'm so excited. It's really a graphic memoir. I haven't even this is the first time I've ever talked about it publicly. So, but and I'll be kind of announcing it on Instagram at some point soon. But I'm extremely excited for it and to tell this story, and it's going to be, I've done a lot of work already for the book proposal, but it's going to be a lot of work. So I have to kind of buckle down over the winter.
Oh, yes. In
Yeah.
beautiful New York, where it can get quite cold. Although
Well, maybe I'll come to Manchester. It's a great place to buckle down and write a book, and
you'd be very welcome if you like the rain.
yeah, beautiful rain, go on hikes.
Come to the Peak District.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time, Timothy. I'm gonna leave you there to get on with your day. And you sat in your studio right there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in my studio in New York, my art studio.
What are those paintings on the wall behind you, those artworks?
So this painting right here is by an incredible illustrator artist who everyone should follow. Her name is Jade Purple Brown.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I love her.
And
yeah,
I
she's
love
great.
that piece. Also over here, I have a painting, an illustration by my friend Mira Mariah. Her Instagram handle is Girl New York. She's this incredible artist and tattoo. Many of my tattoos are by her. So I have all kinds of stuff in here from friends and people who inspire me tremendously. It makes me feel comforted.
Yeah, it's a lovely, inspiring space. I also like the is it an AstroTurf rug?
Yes, it's pretty much fake grass.
Love it.
That's by that was actually the idea of my studio mate John Sampson, who's an incredible graphic designer. He had that idea, and it was perfect.
I love it. I really
I like pops of color I like the accents of color everywhere, and
with the classic white walls.
Yeah, I just like a homey feeling in my space. It's my little cave here. So
I've got to ask you this one question because you're a fascinating person and you're so honest and you really kind of try and be very self-aware, and it's very refreshing. I got asked. I got into a taxi the other day, which was nice for the first time in a while. And the gentleman who was taking me to my destination asked me something very profound. He just said, "What do you think is the meaning of life?" So I'm going to ask you that same question, Timothy.
Man.
Why not, eh? I know.
Hey, I think the meaning of life, I don't know. In a lot of ways, I'm still struggling with that.
Yeah.
I think that I'm still struggling to ask myself that question. But I think that's the most important thing is if you're asking yourself the question on a normal basis, and you are, really trying to process that and to consider all the decisions you make in life. Are you making decisions with that in the face of all of it? Like, what is the meaning of all this? Does this matter? Is this important to me? Is this serving me? That's my my word of the year. Like, serve. Like, is it about love? Is it supporting and serving my well-being as a human, as an artist? Is it serving the community around me? Is it serving people? Is it serving my mental health? Is it serving my loved ones? Is it serving my girlfriend? Is it serving, whatever it is for any given person? Those are the things that matter when we talk about asking ourselves, what's the meaning of life? So I think just the simple fact of having the intention of asking oneself that on a consistent basis means more than the answer in some way.
Definitely. I just don't think there's any meaning, and that makes it brilliant.
Yeah, for sure. But
there you go.
Well, I think nothing means anything, and everything means everything in some sense,
Oh gosh, well, that's left certainly me plenty to think about. I'm going to go away and think about where I can improve myself. Oh, thank you so much for your time. It was really nice chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I was excited to be a part of this. So.
To discover more about Timothy Goodman, you can find all the relevant links in the show notes via creativeboom.com/podcast. That's where you can also hit subscribe. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget to leave us a review. Thanks again to our sponsor for Season 3, Capture One. As one of the most powerful photo editing softwares out there, it creates world-class tools that keep your photography ahead of the game. Use the code CreativeBoom to get a 10% discount on Capture One and start taking your photography to the next level. Up next, I'll be talking to Amanda Rach Lee, an artist and digital content creator based in Toronto. See you then.